And greetings and salutations, everyone. You've tuned in once again to On Air with Walt, and I am a host, as always, Walt Lusk. And you can find us on ubngo.com and on YouTube. And we'd love it if you'd like, share, and subscribe, and everywhere where podcasts are, including iHeartRadio. And we have an absolute exciting, amazing guest today, as always. Serena Wright Taylor. I had the privilege of interviewing her with Tony Sweet on Truth Be Told about 7 years ago, and we've actually kept in contact. And she is multi-talented. She is a UFO researcher, award-winning conference producer. We're going to talk about a lot of this. Intuitive Vedic astrologer, and of course humanitarian. She began interested in UFOs and extraterrestrials from experiences during childhood in England that led her to study philosophy and meditation. She's investigated UFOs and extraterrestrial encounters in Puerto Rico and as well as England, and belongs to otherworldly beings being visited on Earth, and I kind of agree with her. And she's also one of the board directors of MUFON, which is Mutual UFO Network, and also Starworks USA. And her website is vimana.org, and we're going to have a fabulous, exciting conversation. So thanks so much for joining us.
Hello, well, great to be back. I can't believe it's been 7 years
since
that first time.
I know, it's. Can you believe it's been that long?
I know. It's amazing.
Yes, indeed. I've been doing this a while.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're doing it because it's so interesting.
As you have. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been exciting. So you are from England. Mm-hmm. And was just, since this is a guest-oriented show, what brought you to, you were in England, of course, but let's see. So from the beginning, and you realized that you were intuitive and psychic. So how did that start?
Oh yeah, well, I didn't know, of course, what those things were called then. But when I was little, I could see a lot of beings, not necessarily extraterrestrials, but things would happen to me, and I suppose, and this is like a lot of people, it's not unusual to have this. I think we learn things when we're sleeping. Some dreams, they're just the day, what goes on during the day, right? And it gets all jumbled up and sorted out at night. And then other dreams, we learn things. It's like we're in school. And I think this can start when we're very young. And it's so comfortable and normal. And to receive information like that when you're asleep, it's not so scary as if something appeared before you during the day, right? So I would have experiences when I was little as dreams that if I was going to sleep, for instance, this is something that happened to me. Sometimes there wouldn't be a ceiling, and instead you could see the universe. I could see the universe. I could see planets. And I could see when I was little, I called a bus in space. I just called them buses because the term UFO or even, flying saucer, I didn't hear it. So I would say there was buses. I remember explaining to my parents that go from different planets. And then there was beings in the sky that look like snakes. But I think they are beings that can live in space, that don't need craft. And so that's what they were. But, I would describe these things. The thing is, I love to play in the pond. And when I saw those little creatures in the pond, the message really in my head with the dream, or the times it happened, was that as above, so below. What's in the pond is in space. There's beings that can live in space. There's other planets. There's craft, and it's full of life. And so I sort of grew up with that thinking that I know that space is full of life. And when you're looking at it in that kind of experience, people might relate to it. It's like you're looking into the ocean or into a pond, you're looking at it, and you're on this planet looking into this depth. And those kind of experiences were happening to me, and they weren't really unpleasant at all. And I could see other beings in the room. Sometimes I could see beings that I call night flitters, mm-hmm. and I still see them. They are, and other people might, and I'd love to hear from other people if they see them, because they're small, they're smaller than, they could be like a little bit like a bat, but they can spin. They're subtle beings, what I call subtle, and we use that term a lot in Vedic descriptions, because there's spiritual, but there's also subtle, which is more like material still, but it's more like a gaseous substance or a etheric substance, so they can go between dimensions. That's what I think about them. But I used to see them flying around the room, and I have seen them through my life. And you see them out of the corner of your eye. Like if I was in a hallway, not in this house, in a different house, and I saw them flying around the middle of the room that was dark, and this room was light. And then I looked again and they'd gone. But yeah, there's beings like that. So I would be aware of all these beings and different things that happen. So there's a scary story too, actually. People might like that. There's in the beach town of Worthing in England, there is a pier. We have a lot of piers on most of the beaches, and there's usually a pavilion at the end. And I remember when I was 2, and my parents remembered this forever. They remembered this because they totally believed I saw something, because they could tell by my reaction.
So you all still remember this at age 2? Wow.
Oh, I remember.
Oh my goodness.
This. Yeah, it's my first scary being. So I loved piers. And I remember I was about 2 because I was walking with my parents holding each hand, and they would help me. They would pick me up and put me down. It was fun, and I could see the ocean underneath. And I thought it was so exciting and fun. And I loved the pavilions because they had all kinds of fun little games in them. And in those days it wasn't noisy like it is now. It's more noisy now, and with all the electric stuff. But when we got to the pavilion where I normally would just want to look at something and play with it, I saw a being in the corner on the ceiling, and it was upside down, and it was a face. So imagine if we put our face through the ceiling and we saw another world, but the world was upside down to us, and they were walking on the next ceiling. So the being was so comfortable putting his head and being upside down, and I knew that he was taking something, and it's our energy. But of course, I didn't understand any of that then. So I knew that this being, who was like kind of growling and smiling, that nobody else could see him. And there was 2 children who were older than me playing by themselves, like a run, and they were right under him. And I was screaming and I never made a sound. I was very shy, so I didn't say much when I was out. But my mum was ahead, and my father had my hand, and I screamed for her to come back. And I remember putting my hand and saying, "Come back! There's someone. And I called it a funny man, because that's what I call scary things."
Yeah.
No. And I explained it to them. And so in the end, my father picked me up and took me outside the door, and then they didn't go in. But they always remembered, "You saw that thing in Worthing Pier," And I did go back, and look as if I could see it again, but I couldn't. But yeah, sometimes there's beings in other dimensions that can take our energy, and that's what I saw.
And I agree that I think beings can be, they're multidimensional, and we only deal with 3. And I've read that if we are more aware or want to be more open, then they're more likely to possibly expose themselves to us.
Yes.
So you must have had that at an early age.
Yeah, and we want the positive ones. I mean, I've seen fairies, I've seen positive beings, but that was a scary one. But people often like a little scary story, and I thought of that today. So I just thought, oh, I'll tell that story, But yes, I was getting these classes at night sometimes. I've had them my whole life. They then turned into being at a desk and learning. So, and a lot of people who have ET experiences talk about that too. And I think they are ETs. I wasn't sure if the teachers that taught me on the other side are what I call spirit guides, but of course they're also teachers. And mine, I don't really see them. I know they wear long robes. I know they're very kind. I can't remember actually seeing their face, and I don't even try to. But yeah, I've had these teaching experiences at night. But yeah, that was going on. And then also I was having some memory of a bad past life would creep in. I'm going to write a book about that. And and then most of the time it was very pleasant though. And so I was aware of the other dimensions, and I really wanted spiritual life. I didn't know it was called that. I just wanted to do some kind of, spiritual things. And when I saw nuns, when I was little, I wanted to be one. And my mom said, but they wear men's shoes, and that she knew that would put me off. So
Oh my.
oh, they do.
I never
Why
thought
do they
about
wear men's
I never thought
shoes?
about that, but you're right. That's funny.
But then when I saw Indian ladies, I thought that's what I want to wear. And I had an Indian past life, and of course I followed on my spiritual life in Indian teachings, the
Yes.
Vedic
Yeah,
teachings.
we're gonna get to
But
that in a
yeah,
sec.
once I discovered that, so then later on, I probably skipped a lot of things out from, but yeah. So I was getting this information about UFOs psychically. Then I started reading about them as well, seeing beings, and talking about those things at school, and always trying different religions, especially when I was 14, 1967. And I loved the whole idea of love and peace, and especially coming from, all what was coming from California then. I really wanted to be in California, and I had a pen friend, two pen friends in America, but wasn't old enough to leave England. But I really wanted to go sometime. And so then eventually, well, I was at the BBC after I left school for 2 years, and then I joined the Hare Krishna temple and started studying the Vedas seriously.
Yes.
And practicing, And so when I first came to America, I was still living in temples, and in Washington D.C., Georgetown, actually, New York, and of course then L.A. and Berkeley, all those temples. Really nice places to be in the temple.
I can imagine. I can only imagine.
So yeah, that's how I came to America. I think that's one of the questions you asked.
Yeah, obviously you were in England, and you've said you wanted to be in Southern California, and we know you are. So you made it.
I did make it.
As you good and
I
should.
brought everything together because I feel like the stuff I do now. Well, I actually, after I left the temple, I was a personal assistant to actors. So I was involved in the entertainment field, and I studied to be a script supervisor, but then I ended up being a personal assistant. But all those skills, as you know, they all help each other.
Yes, they do.
I did that. And so now working in doing conferences, I can merge the entertainment and the spirituality together. So that's just great. It's like, who would know I could have done that? I did that.
And
even UFOs too.
Absolutely. I mean, you're one of the directors of Conscious Life Expo, which I've actually been to. It's here in LA in February at the LAX Hilton.
Yes.
So I mean, that you've been doing it for almost 20 years or so.
Yes, it is. It's 20. Yeah. So next one will be the 21st. And we hope it'll be back to the normal amount of people, because normally it's about 12,000. We've had more than that. We've had up to almost 15. 2020 was like one of the biggest expos, and that was just before COVID.
Just before COVID.
Were you there? I think.
No, I don't think I was there in that one. I was in the year before, and a couple of years prior to that as well.
Yeah, we had Russell Brand as well. So
it was
wow, really amazing. And then then COVID was just beginning to happen, because we saw people wearing masks at the hotel, because it was in February,
Yes.
And thought, this is a serious thing. And so if people had a nice, they're able to have the expo and then stay home, for a long time. And then we had our next one online.
Yes.
Which is how I learned to use the microphone I'm using, and
right, and we've all become intimate with Zoom.
Yeah.
Who knew?
And this big microphone.
So, but you also studied UFOs, I believe you said, in Puerto Rico as well.
Oh, I love Puerto Rico. Yeah, we'll go again. We were going to go this year, but we're going next year. It's amazing there for UFO activity and extraterrestrial activity. And it could be because it's sort of cut off in a way, but the military are there, of course, American military. And we think of that as maybe they knew there's alien bases, There's so many things that people have seen all kinds of beings, all kinds of UFOs. There's a lake called Laguna Cartagena where the UFOs go into the lake. And we've been close up to that lake. And once it was more of a drought, and it was getting smaller, and there's you cannot see any way where the UFOs could go in, but that's an ability that people have on higher planets or more advanced planets, that they can go through matter.
Yes.
Or they can move through
dimensions.
different dimensions.
Yep.
And when I often talk about those in presentations, I describe the different kinds of abilities. They're called siddhis that people have on higher planets. So they're called yogic siddhis. So just like we can, be some of us are psychic, or we're all a little bit psychic, or we can just hear and see and things. So their abilities are normal, that they can go invisible, that they can go,
Right.
it's called antardana, that they can be invisible. And then there's prapti siddhi, which is when a person, or whether a being or a craft, can be in one place and then suddenly in another place, because they can use the other dimension, kind of travel in a parallel dimension and appear over here. And it can be confusing to us, but it's a way they can protect themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's all these kinds of skills or siddhis that people have on different planets. And I say people because many of them look very human.
Yes.
The lower ones,
yes.
or the lower planetary systems, may have the grays, but there's the very advanced beings who are spiritually advanced as well. And they can just travel interdimensionally and appear in different places or be invisible. Or there's the anima and mahima, which is the ability to be smaller or to be larger, or to make something light or heavy, and all those things. They're all in. It's all described in the Vedic literature, and so that sometimes I think about how we want disclosure, and we're really looking forward to that. And now there's an office in the government where they have to report twice a year to Congress about the UFO activity, UAPs, but the thing is that I think a lot of the reason why those who know can't really announce it is they don't know everything. It's so hard to describe that how
very different facets
are controlled by consciousness.
Yes.
And if you're advanced spiritually, you can do all these different things, and there's so much in it that who can explain that, and how could they understand that?
Right, how they can comprehend it. And I break it down in two parts. There's disclosure, which I believe we've had, and then there's validation of that disclosure.
Yes.
And everybody's wanting the President of the United States to come on the White House lawn and go, okay, we've been visited, and I just met with somebody, and whatever. But it's it's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's like trying to describe that it's technology and science that we don't understand
yes.
yet, and that's really what the paranormal is. And it's not something made up, or like a fairy tale. Fairies are real too. I've seen fairies. So they're real too, but it also has that you can prove it, just like so many things now that we would think were paranormal in the old days, like an iPad. Or that has to be a paranormal thing because we couldn't describe it,
Right, it's not connected to anything. How does that work?
Yeah, it's impossible. So that's a lot of the times what we see. And even in the ancient legends, they're not really legends, they're true, and that those beings had different kinds of technology and personal siddhis, which they can use from their actual body can do.
So along those lines, you studied the Vedic texts, and then obviously your website is alluded to that, but the Vimanas, which are anti-gravity craft from way back. So can you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, they're way back, but they're also going on now. I mean, there's something that's always there in the higher planetary systems, and the Vedas describe different kinds of vimana, and they weren't being made by us here, or by people on this planet. They usually were given to different people on the planet at the time of the more advanced times, because in Vedic literature it describes the yugas, and there was more very advanced yugas in the past, or periods of time where people lived longer than now, and they had more wisdom. And there was at the same time maybe less intelligent people as well, or people living in caves as well. And at the same time there was very advanced cities like Dwarka. And so you hear all these different stories about different kinds of beings, and beings came and lived on this planet from other planets. Some of them lived here. And then also they were visiting, and who wouldn't want to visit, because at that time the Vedic civilization was very spiritually advanced, And it gradually degraded gradually at the beginning of Kali Yuga, from Dwapara Yuga to Kali Yuga. And that's when the Vedas got written down, because before then they could be spoken and people remembered. They knew their history. They knew about all the spiritual progress, spiritual process, but they were written for this age of Kali, because now we are less intelligent than then, actually. But really, I have a lot of hope for humanity, because at this time, we're in a Sandhya period. We're really between, when you look at the huge amount of time, we're in between the Dwapara Yuga and the main part of Kali Yuga. So we have an option to advance, and there's still spiritual information on this planet. We have the Vedas, we have great teachers, we have we can spot the important, what we have to learn, the important things we have to learn. And many people are being born here who are wanting to just kind of have their last life before they go to a higher place, So I think, it's special in that way. Heaven and hell are in one place on this planet. And the thing is, what we really, in Vedas, it really teaches is that you have to do service, you have to do the work. It's okay to meditate and all that, and that's really important. But between that, you have to do what you can that's good, to help others.
Yes.
Because, because they, even on the spiritual level, somebody cannot attend to their spiritual life if they're suffering, if they're hungry, or if they're suffering. So those in charge are supposed to give everyone a good life and protect them, and the animals too, so that they can become more advanced. And in this lifetime, because human life is meant for spiritual advancement. I hope I don't sound like I'm preaching too much.
You're doing fabulous. It's all good.
I just wanted to kind of explain, because in other words, any kind of UFO disclosure, it can even go to all that, because it really shows about what life on the universe is and why we're here, and we're here to evolve. And that's why these beings are some are more evolved and some are less evolved.
Well, I tell people all the time that we are not alone. I mean, if people think that we're the only ones around, I mean, it's big universe, and it's just more than us.
That would be awful to think that humans are the only.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So what are some of the highlights, for 20 years of Conscious Life Expo? I mean, the beginning must have been really interesting, because obviously people 20 years ago, they weren't quite as aware and whatnot as they are today, I would have to believe. And that must have been a really pioneering time for that.
Well, I think a lot of people were aware too, But at the beginning, what was going on is we didn't have so much going on. I mean, we did have radio. I mean, when you think about the Whole Life Expo, that was before Conscious Life, and it wasn't ours, but I used to volunteer there. And there was no internet then. And,
right.
And we had to have the books, and we were so excited when a speaker came that we had read their book, And so gradually it's become more, there's Amazon now and everything, and then there's YouTube and everything. So you can see a lot of people, but what we like is at the Conscious Life, or all these different conferences, you can actually meet someone that you're interested in talking to, and you've read their books and everything. But at the beginning, there wasn't anything. Whole Life had finished, and there hasn't been anything. And so our producer, who was he'd been putting on a smaller conference in the Bay Area, he came down to LA to start a conference here. And my friend called me, who knew him, and he said, and that would be Robert Perala. I don't know if you remember him. He's an author.
I'm familiar with Robert.
Yeah, and he would speak at Conscious Life, at Whole Life as well. And his friend, Robert Quicksilver, who's our exec producer, he told me, I'm going to come down and start an expo. Who can help me with the UFOs and the ancient stuff? And because I don't have anyone for that. And he said, oh, Serena, you've got to have Serena. And so, and at the time, we had just got married, my husband and I, and we were not sure where we were going to live. We were being in LA, and because he builds houses, so he had some work in the south, more the south of LA, more south than Huntington Beach, and so we were thinking, should we live there? But then and I thought, oh, maybe I should, maybe that universe wants me to. But then this happened, and I said, no, I can't. We've got to stay in LA because Conscious Life Expo. But then, yeah, we did leave. We did sort of live in San Clemente for a while, but that was okay. It's still near enough. But yeah, it's decided my life, really. That decided the next part of my life. And I had no idea we'd go on for 20 years, but it's been so good. And it was smaller to begin with, and it's grown, and it's sort of organic. You know, certain people will come and help, and certain things will happen each year. And we have a whole music section that's amazing. And then there's, you know, different healers and people who will go on KPFK. And with Lisa Garr, and she always comes, George Norrie comes, and Jimmy Church. And there's so many different, you know, kinds of interests for so many people. And we always say, you know, write to us and suggest what you want to hear as well, because it's the People's Expo. And that's all at consciouslifeexpo.com. You can see the information.
And there's a lot of speakers on conscious. I mean, in the past, it's like, wow, how can you see it all? It's huge. It's really been grown a lot.
A lot going on at once.
Yes,
that's
indeed.
All part of the fun, you know.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of exhibits, as you know. I mean, it was really interesting. And there are other very, very different types. I mean, not just one specific. I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's like a village that you can walk around. You can hear a speaker, then you can come and buy all kinds of things that you might not get to, you know, and you can get them online, but you can't really try things.
See them and feel them and touch them and learn more about it.
But, you know, different kinds of healing oils. I mean, there's one lady who brings amazing healing oils, and there's all kinds of food too, healthy vegan foods to have. And so, there's restaurants in the hotel, but you can also have vegan food.
Yes, amongst everybody else.
Yeah.
So, but how did you get involved in MUFON? I go to the MUFON presentations down in Orange County myself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Mutual UFO
actually,
Network.
That is my website's just going to be redone, and I'm not on that board at the moment. I was on the board for about 5 years.
Okay.
I couldn't keep on with everything.
Sure.
But I mean, but MUFON is online at the moment here. I think it is in some of the other cities.
It still is. It still is.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. But I still post for them on their Facebook. But yeah, we're looking forward to when all the MUFONs can be in person, because that's such a great way to meet other UFO investigators and researchers that, you know, in the audience, not just listening to the speaker. And so it's really kind of like a club, really, isn't it?
It really is, and it was always fun to see. It was always fun to see Robert Woods, who was huge in the UFO world.
Oh, it's incredible.
He's an amazing guy.
It's just amazing.
I don't know. He's 100 years old or something. I don't know. He's been around forever.
And he's still so alive.
Yes. Yes.
It's just amazing. Talking to him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's always there and approachable.
We have him here in Orange County.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So then you've ventured over into doing readings and.
Oh yeah, so I was doing those in England too. At first, I used tarot. So even when I lived in the temple, I would do readings for the girls because we were all young then. We're like 20s, you know, or teenagers. And so, yeah, I would do tarot readings for the girls, and they might want to know when they're getting married or something like that. But I'm good at that. I'm good at telling people that. And so I would do that with tarot readings. And then as a Vedic astrologer, I knew a Vedic astrologer at that time, and his wife did tarot readings, but and I was so interested in it, and I studied it a little bit, but with before computers, we had to put the chart together by hand, and that's really difficult, and you can make a mistake.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, it's a lot of work. Yeah. So I really like now that, you know, well, once computers started and computer programs, I had a lot of great teachers, a lot of great Vedic astrologer teachers in my life. And it's like they come to me. It's like, you know, sometimes you just get a mentor. They just think, oh, you can do this. They usually see my chart usually, and they say, oh, you should be a Vedic astrologer. And so then they want, and I pick it up pretty quickly. I'm told by one of my teachers now. And we can discuss, you know, charts, and, you know, I learn more. I always learn more. It's amazing. Things come up, and and I'm combining it with my psychic ability when I do the readings.
Mm-hmm.
So, I might see a time period come in, or a particular aspect going on, and then I'll see, something in my mind, like a clairvoyant picture
Mm-hmm.
of what it means for the person. So that could happen, or it could be around the other way. I might see something and think, when's that going to happen? And then look at the chart. So yeah, you never know. I learn from doing the readings too, and I feel very energized from doing them. And I don't do too many a day. I have a lot of different things I do in life, and I think it's really good to, when I have a client, to meditate on them, to write notes, then to look at the chart, then to look at subsidiary charts and get everything ready, and then do the reading, and then relax and not jump into the next one, because for me it's easier to do that. I know some people can just go on all day doing it, but I can't. I do it in a more relaxed way, so that I can really concentrate for the person.
Now, I know there's different types of astrology that people have and know and are aware of. So how is this different from like, I don't know, Western astrology or other types that it's more accurate or not, or perspective?
Yeah, they all work, really. They all work. There's, and even Chinese astrology is very different, but it makes so much sense. It's amazing. But there is a difference by 23 degrees, and Vedic astrology, just think of it as the same as astronomy. It's the same. For instance, Jupiter just went into Pisces. Now, the tropical astrologers have it already there for a while, but it's not. It just went in. It is in, but it just went in now, and yesterday. And so this is a big thing, actually. And so it's so nice to do this show with that has just happened, so we can sort of announce it, because Jupiter's been very weak for 2 years. And it's been going through the signs that are owned by Saturn. And obviously the world has been in a very difficult situation, and it still is, for 2 years. And there was a point there, it was the 21st of December, 2020, when Jupiter was at its lowest point, which is a debilitation point with Saturn conjunct. So when Jupiter's at its debilitation point, it's the weakest, and then Saturn covering it. Imagine that. So it's basically not really there.
So Jupiter,
and there was a lot of other things going on.
Wow, because Jupiter's a pretty big planet. So you're saying that Jupiter was kind of hidden by Saturn?
Well, it's hidden with energy. Well, you know, the energy, as far as if you looked in the sky, you could see it, usually with a telescope. But it's because of the energy we're talking about, or the frequency. So for people who might, obviously not everyone's going to know what Jupiter means, but Jupiter is a very high vibration planet, bringing all the good. It's the wisdom, it's the spiritual wisdom, and it's protection, it's justice, purity, growing in everything good, money as well, a good flow of abundance and finances, and truth. That's a very important part of Jupiter. Truth, which we don't see much of, and these days, and so all these good things that that is part of the world was very covered by Jupiter being weak. And so we're really celebrating that Jupiter just went into Pisces, and it's going to get stronger. Now, that doesn't mean that everything bad magically disappears, because there's war and all horrible things. So it's not that we can just sit back and say, oh, now it's all going to go. No, we have to take action, but it's easier for us to take good actions. It's easier. Those who are of purer heart are going to be helped more by this power of Jupiter than before, when we felt overwhelmed, And so I'm very happy. I've been waiting for this. And I think I was saying to you earlier that I booked my flight for England because I used to go every 2 years. And then I had to stop for COVID. And because I knew the restrictions would become less with this Jupiter in Pisces. And I knew that you're going to see that now. You're going to see restrictions. I mean, obviously have already, but more. be taken down, and more freedom of movement, more travel, because that's what happens when Jupiter's in Pisces, more travel. And so telling you that would happen. So that's really a positive thing to look forward to. And the thing is that we can try to tune into that good energy, and really everything is frequency. It's our karma,
karma, vibration, frequency. Yep.
Yeah, we can often, blame things on planets, like, oh, I got this transit and so this happened, or, but or even the good things we think are they are, but the planets are just showing on our personal chart our karma. So we have to make sure we make good karma and not bad karma, and the frequency, of everyone, hating each other, and the different things that go on, whether they're online or in person. That's such a negative frequency to put out.
Yes, it is.
And so, and then it attracts negative things, and then also, even things like viruses are attracted to frequencies. So,
well, yeah, like attracts like.
Yeah. So that's what I feel about that. So if we change our frequency, that's a good way of getting out of things like virus epidemics and all kinds of things like that. To change it to kindness, and then see what happens then. See what we can attract then.
And I think meditation makes a big difference in that regard as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've also mentioned Saturn, and I think Venus was something that you've mentioned before as well, in terms of how those correlate.
Yeah, well, Venus moves much faster. Saturn's slow, obviously, and it is in its own sign now. And it was in its own sign before. It's just that Jupiter was weak. So now, actually, this year, both those big planets, slow-moving planets that are very important for our life, are both in their own signs. So the people born this year have got a very good chart just from that. I was thinking that the other day. Of course, everyone's chart can be different because the moon changes every day, and all the planets, Mercury's moving fast, of course. But it's really great to have those two major planets in their own signs, because when a planet's in its own sign, it can be more of itself. It can do more of the good for itself. And Saturn's not bad. It's just that it was over Jupiter. It can give incredible stability. Without Saturn, we couldn't be so, we can't build things and have a strong foundation and, have security in life. Saturn's very important too, but the good side of it.
Tony and I are always, Tony Sweet here at the studio, we are always making jokes about Mercury retrograde, because obviously Mercury's pretty quick going around, and it's like, oh, we're in Mercury retrograde. And
yeah, it's true. You notice more problems, right? When Mercury's retrograde, you notice more problems with communication.
Yes, definitely communication. And I've had computers and stuff crash during Mercury retrograde, and I always blame it on that.
Yeah, well, it's true. But the thing is, it reminds us to be more careful with things. It's because it's not really like everything's bad. It's just that our things slow down, our mind slows down. Just think of Mercury being the mind, the analytical mind, and information, and it's like it all kind of slows down, and you have to double check, like when you go like on a trip. It's not like you shouldn't go on a trip. Just make sure you've got everything before you leave. Make sure your paperwork's in order, your keys, and then when you're doing something with technology, just really start early and make sure everything's in order. So it's just really there to help us do that. And we always say, don't sign contracts or do something brand new with anything to do with communication. Just wait till it's more direct, if you can. But sometimes we have to sign contracts with Mercury retrograde, and I help people find a good time for that. You can get the moon or a people chart that's okay, because you have to. It's not like you can stop life,
No, the show must go on. And I've understood, my executive producer Jeremy says that when there's a full moon for 3 days, it's not good to come to enter into agreements.
Yeah, the thing is, yeah, I mean, you could be with agreements. What we find with a full moon is, I've spoken to doctors who really know that with a full moon, people bleed more. And it's a fact. And one doctor friend of mine, that they won't do any surgery on that day. She just won't do that. Yeah, she just knows it, and she's not really into astrology that much. She just knows that's what happens. So yeah, that's what we think for full moon. It's very auspicious, and it's very auspicious to be born on a full moon. Actually, very nice to be born on a full moon, and many people are.
Well,
It's
yeah.
the dark moon that's more difficult, and that's when the moon is waned, and even the brand new, it's not quite as strong. So if you're starting something new, I would say don't even not in even on the actual full new moon. Just start maybe a couple of days after the new moon.
So you
But
say,
I'm good at helping people with that, like with
yes.
launching something, or getting married or doing some special, that it's called, finding an auspicious date.
Well, there you go. Now, I was doing some research, and were you involved in a movie UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied, which I think is a great title. I hadn't heard that before.
Was I? I think I was.
That was in 2006. It was it was a while back.
Um,
Yeah, The
I'm
Greatest
trying
Story
to
Ever
remember.
Denied, which I think is a great
Um,
title. I hadn't seen that before.
yeah, I've had interviews for a few different ones, and I know that one, and I just have to remember. But yeah, I think I might have been on that one with an interview or something.
Because I mean, it goes round and round. I mean, are we alone? Are we, is the Earth flat? Is the universe, is the Earth ground? Are there
Yeah,
planets in space? And that's a big debate. Flat Earth is coming out more and more these days. I think
yeah,
it's a very compelling
I know.
argument for me, anyway.
And that's something that sometimes people bring the Vedic concept in with that, and I should explain that because it doesn't in the Vedas. It doesn't say the Earth is flat, and some people believe that. So I just want to explain that it's the ecliptic really that's described, and the name Bharatvasa, which can mean India, it can mean the Earth, and it can mean the plane of ecliptic, or this part of the universe. So it's not that when we're saying the Bharatvasa and it's flat. No, no, that's not not saying it's a flat Earth, and I think that it's described, like that, and so people who maybe are translating it wrong or something think no, the Vedas say it's flat. No, it's not flat. It's a plane of existence, plane of ecliptic, and then it can mean India as well, because at that time that was the basic center of
Right,
civilization.
right, sure was. Yeah,
So it's not that it's a flat Earth at all. It can be around, and the other and there's life on all planets, and that's something that's really described in the Vedas, even the ones nearby. But it doesn't mean that they're made of the same that life looks like us, or even if they look human, they're not made of what we're made of. So it's not doesn't mean that we can see them, even the other life that's on the planet. So if there was a fiery planet, the bodies of the people who live there could be made of fire. If it was like an oily planet and the ocean was oily, the people could be made of that,
right.
or an etheric gas. So it's all different kinds of things that a body could be made of. It doesn't mean they have to be human. So that's what I think about also the Goldilocks zone. It doesn't mean they have to be like us and be living with a water planet. So it can be anything,
Right.
but the body's made of the same thing the planet's made of.
And the Goldilocks zone for those is the Earth is kind of in a third planet from the sun, and there's a certain distance, and we've got water and trees and whatnot, and
Yeah.
things that are Earth-like, other planets around the universe that are like Earth. That's like the Goldilocks zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they could be, yeah, we could have humans like us there that are made with water, but then there can be a hot, fiery planet where people have a different body that they can live easily there. So it doesn't mean it has to be just like us. And so that's why, we really see planets as being there for life, different kinds of life.
And I've read that as far as looking out into the in space, that they've been finding more and more and more planets that are actually in the Goldilocks zone.
Yes, yes, they have. And that's so exciting. And actually, my husband, Douglas Taylor, have you seen his art?
I have
He,
not. I
oh,
have
okay. Well,
not.
his
I haven't had
art's
the
on my
privilege.
website.
Okay, I have to check it out.
Um,
Check it out.
in the big picture, but also his website is DouglasTaylorVisionaryArt.com.
Okay.
Make sure everyone puts visionary in there because there's another Douglas Taylor artist out there in the world. So Douglas Taylor Visionary Art, and you can see he's done a whole new set of paintings of the Goldilocks zone paintings. Goldilocks,
Wow.
the planets that
Yeah.
he feels have life like us, and also, of course, lots of other planets, and UFOs. And he's a surfer, and a UFO experiencer, and so he merges those two things. And it was after he had his UFO experience in Puerto Rico
Oh,
that,
of all
yeah,
places.
before he knew me, yeah,
Before he knew
yeah,
you.
when he was 28,
Oh, wow.
that he started painting, and his friends couldn't believe it. That he was painting these amazing paintings after his UFO experience. But his chart does show that he would be a great artist, and he was a great artist in a past life. His chart shows that, but it hadn't woken up within him until he encountered these extraterrestrials.
That's really interesting. So the switch got flipped when that experienced that.
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
that does
wow.
happen to people. Yeah.
Very interesting.
And so, he'd had his experience in Puerto Rico, and I had read so much about Puerto Rico before I met him. But there's an investigator there called Jorge Martin, who has made a magazine and researched for years on the UFO activity and the different kinds of ETs. So I really couldn't wait to get there, and he wanted to go back too and surf as well. So whenever we go, it's like, shall we? He wants to surf, but I want to look for ETs. So it's like we have to balance.
Well, there you go.
Surfing, a certain amount of time looking for ETs.
Well, I mean, as far as experiencing that, I know we've got, of course, the crop circles in England, but are you saying that Puerto Rico has a little more high probability of UFOs than other places?
I think so. It's amazing. And if someone speaks Spanish and they go, I would say talk to the fishermen.
Oh,
because
okay.
they see so much.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, and a lot of them only speak Spanish, but they see a lot of craft going under the ocean. They see craft coming out of the ocean, and all around those areas. And there's so many accounts. I'm thinking, which one shall I tell? There's so many accounts of a craft that go in, not just into that particular lake, but in Mount Britain, there's the big forest called El Yonque. A lot goes on there, a lot of ET activity, and the UFOs are seen going into Mount Britain there, and it's as if something opens up and they go in. And one man actually, I don't have his name in front of me, but I've talked about him before. He was healed from an ulcer, and he didn't know, he wasn't somebody who had a lot of AT activity or interest in it, but he went to bed early, or went to lay down early with his family, because he had an ulcer and it was hurting. And then during the evening, two ETs appeared, and his ceiling disappeared, like something that used to happen to me, which as a child.
Wow.
And he was taken into a craft. And one being was tall. They both looked kind of human.
Mm-hmm.
They were both tall. One had no hair and a robe, and the other one had sort of a space suit type thing with hair. and they took him through Mount Britain. He could see he was getting nearer Mount Britain, and he went into it, and then out into the ocean. Came out underground and then in the ocean, and then they took him to an underground city, and he was surprised that he could breathe when he got out. He thought, I'm in the ocean, but he could breathe because it was a city.
Mm-hmm.
They worked on him in some way, cured his ulcer,
mm-hmm.
and took him back, and he woke up in his bed with no pain.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
Yeah, and he didn't want to talk about that for years, because
right.
people are very uncomfortable,
yeah,
and then they think,
a lot of questions.
make comments. The family make comments, and also some of them are a little scared, because the military can be more scary over there when people have had some kind of encounter and they talk about it, and they can warn them, still, don't talk about it. So people are uncomfortable with doing it for that reason too. But he told Jorge Martin, and then he put it in a magazine. After quite a few years.
Right.
But that's what things like that happen. So and people also see the gray ETs as well. they see all different kinds, but they always say that they're more uncomfortable with the military there than they are the ETs, because they always warn them away from it.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. It does, because I know it's a big base there. Sure, it's from logistics.
Yeah, and the ETs are there too, and that's what's really interesting. You wonder what's going on.
That we always do everywhere.
Fascinating.
So, are you working on any new projects?
What are we working on now? Well, we're working. There will be another Conscious Life. I'm sort of in between.
Next February 2023.
Yeah, we start that 23 around the middle of the year. So I'm kind of doing what I can before I get full scale into that. Really, a lot of my things that I like to do are also humanitarian.
Right.
And, when I have time in between everything else. So I'm doing a bit of that. And of course, we all want to help refugees as much as we can. And there are some here already. Obviously, there's a lot here in this country, even though they're not all from Ukraine yet.
Yes.
There's from Afghanistan, and they're from Syria. I've helped a lot from Syria. And I've met wonderful people who are refugees. And it's really important to know that everybody who is a refugee, they want to go back to their home. They're not like choosing to come here.
Yes.
It's
it's home.
Chose to.
Yeah,
I did that. I chose to come here, but not. But the refugees, they always wish they could go home, and they're just like us with families and everything. So I sort of see myself in many of the ones from the East, because when I lived in temples, I lived in a very simple life, and I had my children when little, and we didn't have much money. But we always had a perfectly clean house. And I come and visit a refugee family, and they have a perfectly clean house, but they don't have much money. And it reminds me of me when I had my children, and living a spiritual life with certain rules and things that you do. And all religions are the same in that we all, it's all about love and service, really. And that's what religions are, the real ones, the pure part of the religions. So, I see myself in them, but we're all connected. So it's really important. And if you can help someone be happy, even just one person, you're making a huge difference. And that spreads.
Right. It's like the ripple in a
that person
in a
will
pond.
give love and service to another person, because they'll feel positive, and it just goes out there.
Right. Give back. So how do folks get a hold of you? They want to learn more of what you do and what you're doing.
Yes. For your reading, you can write to me at serena@vimana.org, serena@vimana.org. And that's my email if you'd like to schedule a reading. And then, obviously my website's vimana.org. And I do have a phone to leave messages, voicemail at 310-335-5617, because some people prefer to call and leave a voicemail.
Right.
And you can tell me, if you don't have email, some people don't still. I've got clients who still like to have CDs. So,
sure, the more human touch.
Yeah, we've gone from, like, I used to do little tapes, and little cassette tapes to CDs, and now I send this file, a file, but you can have whatever it is for the reading. But they're on the phone, but it's person to person on the phone. And I can concentrate very well that way. I don't need to see someone in person, because I am tuning into your chart with the chart before you even call. So, it's that very personal like that.
Well, that's fabulous. Hey, this has been a lot of fun, Serena. Hope we can do it again sometime.
It's been fun. Yeah, could chat all night.
And folks, put Conscious Life Expo on your calendar the LAX Hilton next February 2023.
ConsciousLifeExpo.com.
It's fun. It's really an experience. You gotta check it out. So thanks, Serena. God bless.
Thank
and
you.
Have a super evening, and appreciate you being on.
You too. Thank you.
Folks, you have been tuned in to On Air with Walt, and I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and you can find us on www.onairwithwalt.com, and of course on YouTube. And if you would like, share, and subscribe, that would really be fabulous. And of course, everywhere the podcasts are available, including iHeartRadio. And we've got a few more shows coming up, so I appreciate you watching, listening, and stay tuned. God bless everyone.